All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are. Good evening. My name is Jason Spiegler with Compliance Group, and I'm super excited to moderate and facilitate part two of our webinar series with JuneBrain and MDIC on digitalizing design quality, focus really on MedTech startups. And we're going to talk today about implementation, adoption, and really what was the business value from JuneBrain's experience. We've got a great group of panelists today. I'm going to have each one of our panelists go through and introduce themselves from left to right. Why don't we start with you, Sam?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Samantha Scott, or I go by Sam. I am the CEO and founder of JuneBrain, which is a Baltimore-based medical device startup company. And it's great to be here.
Hi, sorry. Hi, I'm Xander's. Oh, so sorry about that. Okay. Hi, I'm Xander Scott. I'm the quality manager over at JuneBrain, and I was heavily involved in the Polarian implementation that we will be talking about today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Smocker. I am the principal product manager at JuneBrain.
Everyone, Joe Sapienti. I lead the group at the Medical Device Innovation Consortium, or MDIC, and we are sponsors of the Advanced Manufacturing Clearinghouse Group, and happy to be here with our friends from JuneBrain as well as Jason. Jason's been a huge supporter of MDIC for a very, very long time, and appreciate the opportunity to talk to everyone.
Great. Joe, would you mind talking a little bit about your background as well? Because I think that'll provide some context as you make you add commentary as we go through.
Oh, so you justify why I'm here, Jason? So basically, before joining MDIC, I was in the medical device industry for about 40 years, primarily in the design control, but also had responsibility for clinical affairs, regulatory, a little bit on the medical affairs side in the early days of companies that I worked for. I started with surgical and the Tyco Healthcare, and before joining MDIC, I was with Whole. Had always been the case for quality side, so always had opportunities to work with as well as the agency group, along with the framework initiative, and then it became the Advanced Manufacturing Clearinghouse. And so had been involved in that, and where I've come from, and because in the example here from JuneBrain, they did very early the value of putting things into and making decisions early, where some companies, large, medium, and small, aspire to do that, but haven't done it. And so, for the use cases, and we at MDIC are constantly looking for areas where we can bring stakeholders together to solve common issues over years to advancing medical technology. And this is a very good example. I participated in the first use case webinar. You heard a lot about the value of making these decisions and this commitment that JuneBrain is, and you'll hear even more about this in the second webinar. But this is a really good example of, regardless of your size of the organization, making early decisions and making early investments in things like digital transformation have tremendous value. So, and Jason, thanks.
Great. Thanks, Joe. And again, my name's Jason Spiegler, responsible for strategy and customer experience at CG, or Compliance Group. My background, not quite as many years as Joe, but about 25 years in life sciences, MedTech, combo products, and technology. what I think is relevant, and I'm super excited about what JuneBrain is doing. My first 10 years, I was in quality management with J&J, and then I worked for 3 startups. I was employee number 13, employee 50, and employee number 8 at the 3 startups. So I very much can appreciate what JuneBrain's doing, and just so excited to be able to work with them and be part of this. So awesome. Let's dive in. So the agenda we put together today, we're going to do a quick recap. We're going to jump into, so Sam's going to recap the first part, the first webinar we did. We're going to dive right into some stories on and metrics around actual value. We're then going to go through the experience JuneBrain had with implementation, adoption, and then talk about what's coming next. So quick recap. Again, you can access the recording at this link, and we can send that to you if you want to see it. But why don't we dive in? Sam, why don't you recap for us who JuneBrain is, why you went down this path, and a little bit more about the story.
Sure, I'm happy to. So once again, like Jason said, a recap from our first part 1 of the webinar. So at JuneBrain, we've developed the world's most accessible retinal imaging device, and that's specifically OCT, or optical coherence tomography. And our goal is really to expand access to this technology outside of the ophthalmology office. Part of that reason, next slide, please. Now, part of that reason is because the back of the eye, or the retina, is literally an extension of the brain. So OCT can be used to not only monitor for eye disease, but also neurological disease. So it's really critical that this technology be accessible to neurology clinics, for example, and other settings where patients can more easily get to, so both clinical and non-clinical settings. So what we found is that current OCT devices, like the one on the right, are not suited outside of eye care settings. That's because you have to hire a trained technician, which is very expensive. The device itself tends to be expensive. They're very large, so they require their own room often in the clinic. And it's very difficult for disabled people to use the devices. And this really makes up many of the neurology patient population. So next slide. So we at JuneBrain, we have 2 products. The first one is the NeuroEye. It's our wearable OCT system, and it's driven by AI. So the goal is really to take this awesome technology and make it, put it into a form factor that's easy for disabled patients to use, but also that can be accessed easily outside of the eye clinic. And then next slide. And our second product is our reading center. So we've taken this AI algorithm and we've made it a service. So we will analyze OCT data for ongoing clinical studies, for example, or clinicians who have existing OCT devices can also use our software in the future to help analyze longitudinally or on the spot how patients are doing. This is our team. We're still a fairly small startup company, so we have around 12 people right now, all the expertise needed to commercialize an OCT system. And next slide. So for us, with these 2 products, they are the core of our regulatory strategy. So we, to date, prior to this project, we really relied on a paper-based quality management system, which was difficult for many reasons. But the most critical reason why we've moved into a digitized system is to really increase the safety and quality of our products for patients. It's also allowing us to be more precise and efficient in how we respond to issues that arise during our clinical studies and later post-market. It's increasing the speed of our product development, and all of this is de-risking our path to market. And what that does in turn is increase how competitive we can be for grant funding and investor funding, but it also increases our value to potential acquirers in the future. So for this project, we partnered with Siemens using their Polarian software and compliance group. And CG came in and provided configuration help to implement and help our team adopt this new digital quality system tool. And next slide, please. And why MDIC AMCH? So the Advanced Manufacturing Clearinghouse grant is what made it possible for us to implement this software. As a small startup company, we do not have the same funds or resources as larger companies to implement these best-in-class software systems. So this MDIC funding was awesome. It allowed us to digitize our design quality system. And again, that lends to us providing a safer patient experience with our products. We can now compete with larger and better funded companies, many strategics. And we had a great opportunity to collaborate with the FDA on our quality processes.
Awesome. So again, for anyone that missed the first part, you can see the recordings. There's also snippets of the team going through and talking in more detail about what we just covered. I should have mentioned in the introduction, Daniel Walter from the FDA was in the first webinar we did. And unfortunately, with the changes within FDA around not being able to participate in external communication activities like this, Daniel is unable to join, but he's certainly here with us in spirit. And Joe, representing MDIC, works very closely with the FDA, will provide some of that perspective as we go through. So let's dive into the first topic, and this is really, this is really the meat, right, of any of these programs. You have expected value, but then how did you really do? And maybe we'll start with you, Xander. I believe you've been live now, since the November-ish timeframe, and here we are at the end of March. So it's been a few months. You can see on the screen a lot of the value that you've realized. Could you walk us through and perhaps give us some examples of the value?
Sure. Yep. So over the last 3 months, our team has been using Polarian, and we've had lots of business values. Again, everything on here, probably I could have added some more too, but these are probably the top 8. So yeah, I'll kind of just walk through each one and kind of give some examples. So first up, reduction in our development cycle time. So the R&D team, they are now moving much more efficiently. Now, since we have sprints, and we can now tie those sprints with different requirements and specs that we have in our data quality management system. So everything is moving much more efficient. And I would say there's probably a lot less confusion now on the team, since we can all kind of go into the portal and be on the same page for what's going on in each sprint. Next up, in an increased funding appeal to attract investors and grants. So like many startups, we are kind of always in fundraising mode. Right now, we are talking to different investors, and a question that they're always asking us is, do you have a data quality system in place? And now we can finally say yes. So this makes them a little bit more, I guess, confident that we are kind of de-risking our value now. So yes, they're very happy when we told them that we are using a Polarian right now. Also, it's making our audit time quicker. Pretty much 90, I would even say 95% cut. So we haven't gone through an official audit yet, but if we do go through an audit in our system, we pretty much have everything there that can be exported in a matter of minutes. So we have all of our SOPs, traceability matrices, our different risks and hazards, specs, all that information is right there in our data quality system. So if we ever do have an audit, it won't take the team weeks or even months to get through it. We can get it done really quick in a matter of probably a day or two. Higher acquisition value. So I would say this is probably one of the best things that startups can do in having a data quality system. Again, you want to get it sooner than later, because if you are looking to exit with an acquirer, it's 100% mandatory that you have to have a data quality system in place. Of course, the value can range. It could double, triple, depending on how important and maybe how many requirements or specs you have in the system, or how complex your device is. But this will definitely help us when we start talking to strategics, and if we do end up going through that extra strategy. $1 million in savings. So I would say this is also another good one that has helped us. So for our current timeline, we are set to submit to the FDA, I believe, by the end of the year. Um, However, if we didn't have this data quality system, we wouldn't be able to submit to probably sometime next year. Again, this really has, as I mentioned before, increased our pace in kind of getting to the finish line. So now we can have everything in different phases. And again, it's less people we have to hire, and the team can move at a faster pace to kind of get us to that submission by the end of the year. Let's see what else we put on here. Minimize risks. So unaddressed in design and development. So this is something that we really, really are excited about. Um, Again, with startups, you people have many hats on, but I know one thing that we were kind of missing is a good spot to kind of track all of our risks and hazards that may happen when our device goes on market. I know in our current clinical studies, a few months ago, some of the operators were having trouble trying to determine what a quality image was. So our clinical research manager said, hey, maybe we can do a feature where we can kind of have a stoplight. So as you are starting to focus the eye, it'll have a green indicator to let you know that this is good quality. So she went back into Polarian, added that into the system. So we now have it an official requirement. We actually have already implemented that requirement. So now we have a feature on our current version of the device that has a green quality indicator to let the operators know that the image is good to go. So again, this was good, and we can do this for future feedback. So again, all of the teams on the same page, so we can kind of really understand that requirement and what the specs are needed to close that out. 50% reduction in FDA 510K submission prep time. This kind of goes along the line with the audit I was talking about. As everyone knows, the submitting to the FDA, there's a lot of documentation. So again, from failure modes and effects analysis to cybersecurity to different architecture, all that needs to be submitted to the FDA. And instead of having everything in different emails and portals and in Slack, again, all that is in our quality system now. So again, just really easy to access. And then I would say probably the most important, as you can see, I wasn't able to put a dollar amount or a specific metric on it, but just team alignment. Again, as many startups know, there can also be a lot of confusion, especially if you have a remote team. We have a remote team, so it really is good if we're all on the same page. So again, now we are using our data qualities management system in many of our meetings. We'll pull it up, and again, just make sure that we're all on the same page and aligned on what work needs to be done to get us to that design freeze and start prepping for the FDA. So that was a lot. Sorry, I went through each one. But yeah.
That was great, Xander. Maybe open it up a little bit more to the rest of the JuneBrain team and to Joe. Any additional comments anybody wants to make?
I think, Jason, I'll jump in real quick. I think what Xander took you guys through, or took us, regardless of size, of these 9 areas, there's probably 8 or 7 or 8 of them that resonate regardless of your size, right? From a business value perspective. And I think that the important thing here is whether it's a reduction in time or it's an increase, efficiencies. When companies are on this transformation, this journey of transformation, by in partnership with FDA, we launched the are, decisions you're making, there's always this ROI calculation, there's always this ROI conversation. And having data like this shared across the peer groups really can resonate with companies that are still struggling with making the decision about when or where will I see some of that ROI or that return on the investment. So whether it's a cost avoidance or cost savings, reduction in time, these are all really valuable metrics that apply to anyone that's on this journey. And that's exactly why we did what we did in manufacturing, is so that more companies can adopt these ideas of digital transformation, because we've all talked about it before. We know that there's a gap in the medtech space with companies that drive these digital transformation activities. And so the more data that's out there, the more peer to peer and hearing from peers like this, I think that that'll help move things even faster in the digital transformation space in medtech. So these are really valuable. I'm glad to see these numbers, but certainly the categories I think resonate with anyone who's on this journey.
Great, thanks, Joe. Any other comments? There is a question that came in, but any additional comments, Sam or Sma?
I just have one quick additional comment. It's something we touched on in the first webinar. Is this idea for many startups that these types of tools are not worthy investments because funding is not as easy as larger companies. But now, 4 months out of our system going live, I can confirm now that um, finding ways to invest in a tool like this, whether it's writing it into your use of funds when you're fundraising or writing it into a grant, it saves considerable money down the road. And again, like Joe shared, in the form of better efficiency, everything Xander just covered. It is worthy for, if there's startups online, I would encourage you to look into these types of digitized tools.
I guess to piggyback off of that, I would also say I cannot stress this enough. The amount of time that you save when you have a digitalized central point for all of your workers to go to see design specifications and design requirements is honestly a lifesaver, especially when you are a startup and time equals money and time equals, do I get on the market fast enough, or do I just crash and burn sometimes? So yes, there's a lot of value in having a system like Polarian.
Excellent. Great comments all around. Again, whether it's a large company, small company, but as Joe said, but especially with startups, I mean, there's, significant quantitative and qualitative value, right, that you just heard from the team, which is excellent. There was one question that came in, and again, for the audience, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We do have some time at the very end for a few questions, but I'm going to paraphrase the question, but it gets at data quality from an engineering perspective. Maybe Xander, for you or Sma, you've got the metric of the 90% or 95% reduction in audit prep time, but from a data integrity, did you feel the tool created more confidence in the data itself, that the data was correct, that it was checked, it was error proofed? Yeah, I guess open-ended question. How would you comment on that?
I would say for data integrity, it's very important to do your test cases. So that was one of the things that Polarian helped us with so far. Obviously, there's a lot more testing to do, but the whole cycle of build, test, rebuild, test is important to keep track of. And when it's an individual engineer doing that, they themselves can keep track of it. But the rest of the team needs to understand, like, hey, what did you do? What was the results of the tests that you were conducting? And with Polarian, everyone's able to look at that immediately. So even if it's like on a test case where it was really just one engineer that was responsible for it, other engineers can still double check their work. So it does help with both making sure integrity is there, but also with just overall maintenance and tracking of it.
Great. Excellent. Well, great insights. Any additional comments before we move into the next question? All right, let's talk about implementation, right? So before you can realize the business value, we got to implement. And Xander, maybe you can take us through what your implementation experience was, some of the principles, milestones, activities that you did.
Sure. Yep. So, yep, we can kind of deep dive into implementation. So, as you are implementing a DQMS system, there's definitely two things you have to do. Definitely want to have a implementation partner in place. You definitely don't want to go at this alone. There's so many nuances and technical things that you don't know because it's a system you haven't used before. So just make sure you interview different partners and find the best fit for you. We ended up going with CG, as they also had a strong medical device a background that they've worked with other companies that is really helpful because we had a lot of questions. And then also for the system itself, again, there's a lot on the market. For us, Siemens Polarian was the best fit of exactly what features that we needed. So once you have the tool and your partner in place, and then you can kind of do the implementation. We were really excited. It was a really quick implementation, probably 3 months, a little less than 3 months. And I like it was very simple. We got it met with the team on a weekly basis. So to understand the progress and to answer any of our questions, I would say the project or the milestones were divided into 5 different parts right here. So we had a project kickoff to, again, kind of just understand, define the goals and what's needed from us and the platform requirements. And then the team kind of went off to work, started configuring it specifically for our business needs for the configuration phase. Once they got done, of course, we have to test it before you officially go live. You want to test it, make sure that the team understands if there's any maybe custom fields or some additional reports that would help us kind of get the job done, make our life a little easier. So we did some UAT testing after that. Then we had go live. So with go live, there was also that hypercare period. I believe hypercare was about maybe 2 weeks. And during the hypercare period, it's pretty much when the CG team was available pretty much 24/7. So whenever we had any questions or issues, we can go on and email them, or we actually had daily tag ups with them just to make sure those first 2 weeks went smoothly. And then training. This is something that was very helpful. Again, training is very needed for everybody that's going to be using the tool, so they know how to use it and use it well. The more training, the better. So there was lots of different types of training that CG provided. It's in the box to the right, the different accelerators. So they gave us SOPs. So there's a lot of documentation I was talking about that's needed for the FDA submission. So now we have development and design SOPs. We have a risk management SOP now. There was also how do I describe it? A portal that they created with, I believe, over 50 different kind of micro lessons, where if you want to know specifically how to do something, maybe how do you create a new system requirement, or how do you add a new risk in the system, or how do you look at a traceability matrix. There was a portal that CG made that you can kind of know exactly what you need to do within 3 to 5 minutes. So very, very helpful. So yeah. But again, the implementation process was very simple. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Xander. There is a question, but before I go to the question, again, let me open it up to the rest of the JuneBrain team and to Joe from MDIC. Any additional comments anybody wants to make on the implementation approach and experience?
Yeah, so I would just add the last 3 milestones are really heavily centered on adoption. which is critical from our team's point of view. So ensuring that our team, one, understand why we were switching over to Polarian, how we were going to use the system going forward, and then just making sure there's open line of communication between CG and our team, and then later between SMA and Xander and our team, to ensure people know how to log in and regularly use the system to make sure it stays updated. But I'd say adoption is really critical to successfully implementing a tool like this. So even in the beginning phase, we had organizational change management, OCM, which I had never heard of before then, but it turns out to be pretty critical. And it's really just the space of making sure teams move from one system that they're currently using to the newer future version. So yes, OCM and adoption is important.
Excellent. We'll talk more about OSIM and microlearning and adoption in a little bit, but those are great points. Any other additional comments?
Jason, I'll just jump in and kind of reinforce the whole organizational change management, the value that has, right? Regardless of the size of the companies. I think that's huge. And I think that's one of the keys to success, is making sure you have buy-in from the organization when you're implementing any of these changes. And I think, again, JuneBrain has an advantage because of their size, but certainly validating all of the things that we know are important into change management. So this is a great call out.
Yeah, I'll add to what both of you said, and really, Sam, give you a tremendous amount of credit on this. What I tend to see on change management with programs like this is they started too late, right? They don't start until they're halfway through the implementation, and change management really needs to start even before the implementation in many cases. So again, really want to give you a lot of credit for having that vision and investing in that upfront. To your point, Joe. So great comments. I'll come back to some more questions, but one question from the audience. It's two parts. How long did it take to roll out Polarian? And again, I'll put context on this. This was for design control and risk management, requirements management, risk management, verification, validation management, and the engineering change control. So I think, Xander, I think you mentioned a little less than 3 months. Anything you want to add to that?
No, not too much. So yeah, I would just say from project kickoff to go live, it was about a 3-month process. But again, after that, you have training with the team. So, that will take, a few weeks, maybe a month or two for the team to get comfortable. But the actual implementation was 3 months.
Yeah. And again, design control risk management, probably one of the most complicated sub-quality systems, right, in terms of the QSRs. So your team did a great job to get that implemented in less than 3 months. And the other part of the question is, did you use CSA and leverage a vendor for the validation, or leverage the vendor validation? So I'll open it up to JuneBrain. I can certainly comment on this after you guys comment. Computer software assurance, right?
Yeah.
The risk-based CSA for validation.
Yeah, so I believe CG helped us with a lot of the validation process. Just making sure the software, and Xander, correct me if I'm wrong, making sure that the software was working appropriately, and then Xander really took the lead once we went live, just to make sure that it's constantly being updated, the system, making sure that the requirements are correct, and that it reflects the work we're actually doing.
Yeah, that was going to be my answer too. Like, I've only talked to CG about this stuff. I haven't validated with anyone else.
Yeah. Yes, CG took a CSA approach, did the validation. Polarian also has CSA, CSV, equipment qualification capability as well. That was not implemented at this point for JuneBrain. JuneBrain doesn't have many enterprise software systems yet, right? So there wasn't really good ROI at this point. So CG did do the validation using a CSA approach and provided all the documentation to CG. Hopefully, future stage we'll look at Polarian for some of the CSA, CSV capability. Just to clarify for the person with the question. So great. Well, let's go to adoption. So we've already started to talk about this, and I love these quotes, Sam and Sma and Xander, that you pulled together from your team. Again, this really gets into the change management and the micro learning lessons that Xander mentioned. How do you drive the adoption? And this is where I think a lot of companies, whether you're a small startup or a 20, $30 billion MedTech company. I mean, a lot of the companies that are implementing these kinds of programs struggle with adoption. So would love to hear from JuneBrain some more context around the quotes and the approach you took.
Sure. Yep. So, as Sam mentioned earlier, adoption is the probably most important part. You implement the system, but now you have to make sure that everyone uses it. So, I think with any change, any new system, there's always initial maybe resistance because again, it's new. The team doesn't know how to use it. So, we did have to kind of really just train the team, show them, make sure that it's kind of implemented in meetings. Hey, let's bring up Polarian. Let's look to see exactly what you're talking about. But yes, after 3 months, the team, they've come to warm up to the tool and actually even like it now. So yes, yep. So we have different kind of quotes and feedback that the team had provided over the last few months of things that they like about the system. So yeah, again, a lot of these things I kind of mentioned in the business value. So again, from our clinical manager, she just mentioning, right now we have ongoing clinical studies. So just getting that real time feedback from the clinicians, from the patients as they are testing our device. Again, she can immediately add that into the DQMS system. So then we can start, prioritizing which requirements will be in this current version or maybe future versions later down that we can put on our roadmap. From myself, the quality manager, again, audit prep, I'm actually excited for us to get our first audit one day because, it'll be done in a few minutes, hopefully, with a tool since everything is just so simple. Again, one of my favorite items on Polarian is actually the traceability matrix. Traceability matrix, for those that you guys that don't know, it shows you the full kind of map out of how everything traces in your system. So from system requirements to actually not, I'll even go up a higher level, from user needs to system requirements to design requirements, design specs. All that's right there in the traceability matrix. So you can kind of see your full system and how everything is connected. And then, and again, from our CEO, again, during our Scrum calls, everything is matching and moving much more smoothly now. So, real quick, I can kind of just go over the adoption approach. There's lots of different ways. Some people learn differently from others. So there's different training and adoption methods that we put together. So, KPI identification. We now actually have a report that we can go in and kind of track to see everyone's Polarian usage. So I can see, hey, I saw you only use the tool, 20 minutes this week, and versus other people that may be in it, more often 2 to 3 hours. It lets us to see how often are people using it. If they aren't using it enough, we can kind of dive deeper to figure out, are you having technical issues? Do you need more training? What do you need help with? because we do want this to be something that they use on a daily basis. Also, the design and control and risk management SOPs that CG provided have been very helpful. Again, it kind of explains the entire process, defining the different terms and the different steps of how to get things done. I kind of talked about that portal that they made for us. It has, I guess it's 57 different micro lessons. Again, quick snippets to steps to do exactly what you are trying to do right now. Also, OCM is something that we talked about earlier. Again, this just made sure that the communication was always there. I just want to make sure that people always know what's going on, when it's going to happen, and why they're doing it. Instead of just being told. And then, I kind of talked about the adoption metrics earlier. And then right now, I still currently have actually weekly meetings with the team to make sure I can answer all their questions. And then just make sure that they're, again, adding feedback and comments and changing requirements to make sure, we're always making things tighter and easier for everyone to understand. So.
Excellent. Yeah. Great. Thanks, Xander. Let me open it up to the rest of the panel. Any additional comments or insights anybody wants to share?
I could add one for adoption. Just from a very realistic standpoint, I would say for everyone that is listening to this, when you want to set your expectations around adoption from employees, engineers, managers, be very mindful of how long they've been at your company as well. So, for example, if it's just a new hire, it's very much easier to get a new hire to just dive deep into a new system because this is all they know. So the exposure to it is very fresh. They have no like resistance to it. Any other form of long-term employment or like a very tenured employee, just be mindful that for that there is a learning curve that you will come across, especially if you're going from manual QMS to an actual, digitalized version, and to software system. So just, be mindful in terms of learning curves during adoptions.
Maybe a quick follow-up on that, Sma. Were there any techniques or any things you did when you had a longer tenured employee to try to help address any of the anxieties they may have had?
Yeah, I'll actually plug in my favorite part of Polarian. So there are two versions I've seen. People who are very accustomed to software systems, or they're okay with playing around. They will literally just go hop into Polarian and play around with it. They'll just push buttons and figure out how everything is done. People who are more on the cautious side and they're just kind of like resistant to adoption, they utilize the micro learning videos a lot more. So for them, I would actually like almost instantly just advise people to go take them to the micro learning sessions. They like to watch and see how it's done before they go in with their hands and play around with it. But yeah, the fresh employees are always like very excited and they just go in and they figure it out. They have like they're just very energized in that sense. But yeah, micro learning is awesome.
Yeah, I can piggyback on that a little bit, but yes, to this mod, it's a really great point. I'd say one of the, especially for veteran employees, part of it may also feel like a loss of control over their own data and information, moving from, the system they had in place to manage that data, and now it's going into this vast, Polarian type system. So like what I've seen Sma and Xander do quite a lot, which is awesome, is explaining how they still maintain control, but it's even in a better way because now what they're doing is more visible to everyone else. And it's more likely that whatever suggestions they share or feature updates they ask for are actually being processed and seen and prioritized and turned into actionable tasks for others to work on.
Yeah. And real quick, I was just going to mention, I think Sma and I are on the side of we like to kind of just click around and play with stuff. so much that we kind of break Polarian sometimes, and we have to like call CG, hey, can you please restore this, or I locked myself out, you know. So I was changing too many permissions. So yeah, but thank goodness
Excellent.
we have a partner there to help us get back on track.
Great conversation, great commentary, and we love the fact that you're in the system playing and breaking it and calling us. And I mean, that's adoption right there, right? So
True
excellent.
adoption.
Well, I know we're at the 45-minute mark. Why don't we keep going? We're going to go a little over. I'm not sure if this was an hour and 45 minutes, but or 45 minutes, but why don't we jump in the lessons learned and what's next? We can cover this really quick. We'll go to you, Sma.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so lessons learned, I know we've covered a lot throughout this conversation, but the three main ones that come across as very important to us is the first one, identifying a quality manager. That is very helpful early in the beginning. We can't stress this enough. And the reason for that is because you might think, oh, this is just a software system. I just have to plug stuff in and then I'm good to go. It's not that simple. There's a learning curve to it, but also you want someone who is like point of contact for the software system, for Polarian. So so that when you do have a bunch of these like engineers coming in and they're asking you very detailed question about the system, there is someone who is very knowledgeable, and they can go to immediately. And hopefully that person will also have like an immediate response because they've just spent like months and months learning it. Actually, shout out to Xander for that portion. So yeah, the hands-on quality manager is very important. Also, consolidating your requirements and the risks is really important for everyone, whether you're doing it manually or if you're even doing it through a software system. But I would have to say, as someone who um, suffered through the manual portion for a couple of years before this, it's a lot easier on the software. It aligns everything together. So, like we have in the statement, like it aligns the user needs, risks, and test cases. And like Xander's mentioned before, just having that traceability matrix is very helpful. But the centralization of all that information is extremely important because once you give everyone in the company like system wide access, then when they have a question of why do I have this design requirement, they can just immediately go to what's linked to it, which is the user need. And the user needs that you obviously accumulate, they're based off of, I mean, hopefully everyone does it the same way we do it, but it's based off of hundreds of patient interviews and customer interviews. So it justifies why that design requirement is standing in the software. Maybe initially the engineer doesn't understand why it's there. That kind of clarifies it out for them, but it also gives them the autonomy to go in and say, okay, so if I have to do this design requirement, then I can also go in and have some control over the design specs itself. So just all around, the lessons learned is everyone should be on the same page, basically. So Polarian has given us this the ability to all be on the same page, which is very nice.
Well, any additional comments from the panel on lessons learned?
I think this is a great summary.
And again, I know we talked about quantitative value, but Sma, to your point, and I know Xander hit on this earlier as well, just the collaboration across the team, especially as you're scaling. I mean, if I remember, Sam, when we did part one and back in, I think it was December, I think you just hired your seventh employee. Now you're up to 12. So, there's that scaling. You've got the micro learning to help, but you've got this collaboration now, right? You minimizing the confusion, as Xander said before. So
If
awesome. Let's
if
go
I could
ahead.
just add one more thing, I know we're running on time, but yeah, make sure you guys, again, this is for all startups, is to get a DQMS system as early as possible. I know we're in year six, year six, seven of the company. But again, if we had the funds and everything, we definitely would have done it sooner. So as soon as you do have funding and you have those requirements set after you make your prototype, go on and make sure that's one of the things that you invest in.
Having worked for 3 startups, I completely agree with you on that, Xander. I wish I would have had something like this earlier at the startups I was at. Let's jump into what's next, and then we'll do a quick, any final comments. And I think there is one question that came in that I want to fit in. But Sma, you want to tell us what's next for JuneBrain?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, we mentioned this earlier, but right now we do have an active clinical study. So it's awesome because it started after we implemented Polarian and we went live. So all of the feedback we've gotten from this clinical study is in real time being added to Polarian. Whether it's just like feedback from the patients, from the operators using our device, and then also, team I would say like team acceptance that we're going to add additional features based off of that feedback. Like we've showed everyone how to do change requests and how that leads to added design requirements moving forward. So our next step is to continue on with our clinical studies. We have a lot going on this year, and from there we'll also all of this goes back to FDA submission, obviously, but also developing our validation and verification plans, our VMV tests, prepare for FDA, like we said. The best part for me, because I am actively writing pre-subs for our products, the best thing is that a lot of the work that goes into doing FDA submission, whether it's a pre-sub application or that full 510(k) application, is a lot of it is already in Polarian for me. So I can just go in and like pull it out. That was something I would have to have fished for way before. I don't know if it's coming across very well, but like I have suffered through the manual portion for like a good 2 to 3 years before this, so I'm very happy about having the software. But yeah, so the FDA portion is very nice. And then once we get to it and we start scaling, transferring everything over to a manufacturer will be very smooth sailing for us. And hopefully, by mid 2026, we'll be on the market, and then I can tell you more about post market surveillance.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, and especially having this infrastructure, right, to be able to respond, when there are, hopefully there's not many, if any, right, issues, but you'll be able
Yeah.
to respond very fast. Now that was, uh, again, very insightful. Appreciate it, Sma. So, we only got a few minutes. I'm gonna just put the question that came in out to everybody, and then we can wrap up with final thoughts and comments. The question came in just on the implementation and adoption. Were there any challenges you had during implementation or adoption, and how did you overcome them? I think you hit on a little bit of some of this. I know, Small, when you were talking about longer tenured people versus someone that just joined the company, but any challenges you ran into in implementation or adoption, and how you overcame them. So I'll just open it up.
I could do a very specific one that happened to me. I accidentally deleted people's accounts during the implementation portion. So I think figuring out how to use the system first was a learning curve, even for what I would consider myself like a tech savvy person. Um, so that I think understanding that sometimes you will quote unquote break things, but there's always a solution to it. AKA, I just call CG and they fix it for me. That's probably the initial one that comes to mind, and had the most impact on myself.
I'm sure at some point that's happened to a lot of people. So, I mean, regardless of technology, right? You accidentally delete something or delete delete a user. But any other comments?
I'd say another big one. It was a challenge that turned into a helpful exercise. Was just like collating all of our requirements, the risks we did have at the time, everything into one place. Because going from, and I think Smoth's face has shown this, like you said, going from the manual side of things where there was a lot of redundancy in not a good way, different interpretations of features and how they were reported in different documents. That was the difficult side of going through a manual process. So there was also the challenge of sifting through all of that in order to put it in a clean way into Polarian, so we could have a kind of a fresh start going forward.
Yeah, that's I think always happens with any type of technology implementation is, it forces you to look at all the manual information you have and start trying to harmonize and make sense of it and standardize it. And it's interesting, right, when you start going through that, what you find. So that's a great point, Sam. Any other comments? All right. Well, I know we're almost at time. Why don't we last few minutes here just close out with some final comments? Maybe Joe, I'll start with you if you want to make some final comments from an
Yeah,
MDIC and if you can from
yeah,
an FDA perspective.
yeah. Thanks, Jason. I think a couple of takeaways. I know we covered the lessons learned, but for what we've been observing with the other companies that have been part of the Advanced Manufacturing Clearinghouse, and you heard it here, is the championing, finding a champion or identifying a champion to lead this, driving that change management and how important that is. And I think some of the challenges vary based on scale or scalability in terms of the size of the organization. Certainly from the various companies that we've been working with, we see the value proposition. A lot of the categories in the value are the same, but also how the companies then look at each other. And I come from a background of larger companies, so I don't have the startup perspective, but certainly what we're learning and seeing is that making early decisions about investment has tremendous value, not only if you're going to be a target for acquisition or if you're going to plan on doing it on your own. But I also think that you guys have a tremendous advantage of demonstrating the value because you're small, you're nimble, you're committed, and those are the things that sometimes can derail these projects in other larger organizations where you don't have as much commitment, even though you might have a champion, things like that. But I think that the key takeaway here is, from my point of view, is that there's tremendous value in the digital transformation and the ability to learn from others. And that's what we do, is we bring people together so that everybody can learn from each other. And I think this is a great webinar, just great opportunity for us to learn more about you guys at JuneBrain and learn and to be able to share the story. So I think the more we can do this, the better off the entire ecosystem will be in terms of continuing this transformation.
Great. Thank you, Joe. And again, we're going to have a white paper, right, sponsored by MDIC that should be coming out in like mid to late April on the case study, right, Joe?
That is correct. That is correct. Xander has been working and his team has worked very hard, and it's now in our final review phases, and it takes a few weeks to get that out. So I would imagine sometime April, you'll see the use case. There are other use cases out there already, but certainly looking forward to sharing JuneBrain's story on this and what you guys have heard today.
Great. Final comment.
Company, small company, we're happy to chat.
Awesome. Xander?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna mention, yeah. So I think this DQMS was probably the missing tool that we needed. Well, we already have, our file sharing, software and our project management, team communication. But one thing that we didn't have was the design inputs and outputs tracking. So yeah, again, just super excited to continue using it. And again, just helping us kind of, get through submission for FDA, of course, but then also once we're on the market, collecting all that patient feedback and clinical data.
And by the way, Xander, I did write down my favorite quote today, and you guys had some great insights.
Yes.
Excited for first audit. I have that one written down for you. So that is a true quality manager right there. So, Sma,
I took down it's going to take minutes.
Oh man, okay. We'll have to edit that part of the webinar. Okay.
Sma, final comment?
Um, I guess piggybacking on excitement, I'm just excited to get to FDA clearance and to also be on the market. And I can give you a lot more insight on post-market surveillance, hopefully next year.
Excellent. Well, again, this has been a great project to work with JuneBrain and MDIC on, and we're so excited to be part of this. And JuneBrain has just been a phenomenal partner, and I think you guys made, I mean, again, less than 3 months for a very complex design control risk management. I mean, that's a very complex set of requirements and procedures, and you guys did a phenomenal job. So it's been great working with you, and excited for the future. So so thanks everyone, and yeah, until next time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jason. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.